24 districts have been affected by the dry spell, with over 1 million farmers also facing that challenge, being affected. And on top of that is the agenda that as of February 2024, we've seen that the country's inflation has hit 13.5% from 13.2% in the month of January. This is the Business Day, and it is back on your screen. It is a Friday edition of the Camnet TV Breakfast Show, and I'm your host, Nelson Zulu, and Miriam Kemba will be joining me later on. And just talking about the issue of the dry spell, we did see yesterday Republican President declare a national disaster and emergency in accordance with the Disaster Management Act number 13 of 2010. These are stories that have gone around everywhere the country as we look forward to the major solutions that should be put on the table. And we shall get to discuss more of that, but as we do so, in opening the show, let's get to look at the health tips this morning, and we'll be back on the other side.
Good morning and welcome to the Health Corner here on the Breakfast Show. I am Dr. Nakubia Namfaya. So this week we are talking about anxiety disorder, and yesterday we talked about some of the types of anxiety disorder. We say that there is what we call generalized anxiety disorder, then there is also panic attack and social anxiety disorder, and also specific disorders. So today we'll talk about some of the signs and symptoms of anxiety disorders. Now, before we talk about some of the signs and symptoms, let me just briefly talk about the causes. People who have anxiety disorder, usually it's caused by probably being in a situation where they were traumatized by a certain experience. So it could stem from trauma. So if someone has an experience where they were traumatized in a social situation, and they were so embarrassed and they couldn't cope, or the response was so overwhelming for them, then they might develop social phobia, for example. Somebody who was traumatized because maybe they encountered a snake, they might have phobia to animals. And so these are phobias that can develop due to a certain trauma that occurred in a person's life. The other cause is that it might be genetic, for example. So if somebody would maybe develop a certain predisposition to have low self-esteem or depression, they might also have a tendency to have anxiety in certain situations. So they might have generalized anxiety, where they feel anxious for different things, and they can't ride in a bus, they can't go out, they can't do certain normal things that people would normally do. They're afraid of being married, they're afraid of having children, they're afraid of owning a dog. So those are generalized anxieties, and these people would not only have one specific a fear or a phobia, but they would have a number of things that would affect them. So they could possibly have inherited a gene that could have caused them to have such behaviors. Then the other thing is alcohol abuse, drug abuse, caffeine can also predispose people to having anxiety disorders. Some of these drinks that we are taking, the alcohol, can actually lead to having anxiety disorders. So those are some of the causes of anxiety disorders, and usually the brain would produce hormones, or the body would produce certain chemicals that would overwhelm the body itself and overwhelm the person. And so that is how come they have this exaggerated fear towards certain objects or certain situations. Now, coming to the symptoms. So with generalized anxiety disorder, people with generalized anxiety disorder would have symptoms of being restless, symptoms of fear, symptoms of fatigue. So they would have fatigue, they would be restless, they would have difficulties sleeping, difficulties concentrating, and these symptoms would come about because they are having a lot of anxious thoughts, and they're having a lot of thoughts that maybe something would go wrong, and the fear is so overwhelming that they might even fail to function on a day-to-day basis. And usually these symptoms would have to be there for at least 6 months. So they come, they go, they come and go, and they come on most days in a week. So it's not every day. Maybe sometimes the person is just calm and they're okay, but maybe they are exposed to a situation and they have these fears. They have all these feelings of being restless, feelings of being losing control in those situations. So if those symptoms continue for about 6 months, then we would say that the person has generalized anxiety disorder. Then when it comes to panic attack, a person would usually experience symptoms of sweating. So they would have this, they'll start sweating so much, they have palpitations, their heart feels like it's racing, and they just can't focus in that at that point. So it's usually because of a specific situation. Maybe they're about to write an exam, or they're about to travel, or they're about to deliver a speech, and they become very anxious. So they start panicking. So they would have, sometimes they might even have a headache, they would have chest pain, abdominal pain, nausea, they might even develop diarrhea. So those are some of the symptoms that people with a panic attack would have. And these panic attacks can sometimes mimic a heart attack. So some patients would even think they are experiencing a heart attack because maybe they're having chest pain and they're having all these palpitations. But when you go to the hospital, they would most likely test you to see if you had any cardiac or heart problem, but there would be nothing. And the only way we can, the only thing that would make sense is that the person was having a panic attack in that situation. So those are some of the symptoms of people who would have a generalized anxiety disorder and even panic attacks. For specific phobias and social anxiety disorder, they would have the similar kind of symptoms where their heart is racing, they are restless, and they're sweating, and maybe feeling like they're losing control, out of control. And in those situations, so depending on the type of phobia it is, they would experience these symptoms. Depending on whether it's a social phobia or phobia for animals, they would experience those symptoms. So that is how you can differentiate generalized anxiety disorder from panic attack and also specific phobias. The other thing with generalized anxiety disorder, it would be there for about 6 months, while for panic attacks, it's usually in certain situations or certain social events or situations where a person has to write an exam or deliver a speech. With social phobia, it would be people who are about to attend an event, a wedding, a function, a party, and they become so afraid of meeting people or afraid of being embarrassed or being ridiculed in those situations. Then for people who would have specific phobias, it would be because they have encountered a specific animal or a specific situation which really makes them afraid and makes them get worried so much. So that is how you can tell the symptoms from each other. The other thing with generalized anxiety disorder, they would have sleep disturbances. So they can't sleep well at night on most days of the week, and they are struggling so much to sleep, and so they become fatigued and they become very tired. So I hope you have learned something today. If you missed any other episodes, you can watch them on my YouTube channel. Please invite your friends to watch The Breakfast Show and to learn a lot about health and other topics that are discussed on The Breakfast Show. I'll see you again tomorrow. Make sure you invite your friends. Stay blessed and stay healthy.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nakubiana Mufwa, right there, just giving us insight in terms of the topic that we've been looking at this week, which has been anxiety, and she was just delving into the aspect of causes of anxiety disorders. But without much further ado, it is a Friday and we respect it because it is all about business and we look all things in relation to business. Let's get to look at the money market this morning, and as we get to also usher in our guest. The United States dollar is buying at 23.30 ngwe and selling at 23.76 ngwe. The euro is buying at 25.26 ngwe and selling at 25.76 ngwe. The South African rand is buying at 1.21 ngwe and selling at 1.23 ngwe. The Great British Pound is buying at 29.48 ngwe and selling at 30.06 ngwe. And we've seen an increase, if you ask me, in terms of the kwacha US dollar relationship. As of yesterday, we're somewhere at 23 kwacha at 23 ngwe, somewhere there. But we've seen an increase, and you'd like to know, for your information, that also the inflation rate for the month of February has increased from 13.2% to 13.5%. This is the 8th time that we're seeing this increase in terms of the country's inflation, and all those are issues that we get to dissect in this morning. But let's get to look at the first story, which is the biggest elephant in the room, even as I also get to introduce Miriam Kaimbo, who is joining me on set. I don't know why she's been opting to be joining me a bit late. I don't know if she's up to something or I must be getting worried, because if anything, I'm not supposed to be on this seat on a Friday.
No, but you're in this seat on a Friday. You are.
Yeah, things happen.
Things happen.
And I can't run away from
I'm glad you realize that things happen.
Yes, and I just need to be geared up.
Mm-hmm.
You never know. It's like a kingsman in waiting.
Mm-hmm.
Just like we keep on waiting for Jesus Christ, we keep on to do the right thing.
Yes, and we're told that Jesus will come at night like a thief, so you don't know. That's how I'm appearing now.
Anyway, good to have you this morning.
Thank you. Good morning to you.
Good morning
and
to you too.
Good morning to our viewers as well.
Yeah.
Indeed, it is an exciting morning. Yesterday, I know a lot of people were looking forward to hear what the president is going to talk about in his address, some of the issues that he's going to look at, and one of them, basically the major issue that we saw the president talking about, is the issue of drought, and him going further to declare it as a national disaster and emergency. As well as just talking about 84 out of 116 districts being affected by this drought. We're talking about a huge number,
over 75%.
Over 75%. So this is a very, very sad situation, reality. But we are taught that a lot of measures are being put in place, to cushion this and ensure that farmers whose crops, almost 1 million farmers were affected, whose crops were destroyed, can receive some of the assistance. And a call was made to the DMMU, and a warning as well, as they, not anyone to misuse these funds that are going to be, that are going to be in need of assisting the farmers. So it is a very good thing, given the fact that a lot of people were waiting upon what exactly the head of state is going to do about this issue. We did see also other stakeholders calling on government, to have an agriculture endowed, because they did analyze the situation and reached at the point of saying, okay, this is a national disaster. We need something in place as soon as possible.
Yeah, in case you're joining us, this is the Camnet TV Breakfast Show on a Friday. We're coming live to you on DSTV channel 274, Go TV channel 25, Top Star channel 106, Facebook as well as YouTube. And it is a time where you too can be part of the conversation. But even as we get to usher in our guest this morning, let's get to look at the story where Republican President Hakainde Hichilema has declared the dry spell, which has affected southern parts of Zambia, as a national disaster and emergency in accordance with the Disaster Management Act number 13 of 2010. Speaking during the national address Thursday afternoon, Mr. Hichilema disclosed that 1 million hectares of crops have been destroyed in about 84 districts, and that is about 75% of the districts that we have. But yes, on top of that, I just forgot that on a light note, I need to wish you a happy new month and our viewers out there.
Oh, indeed, it is.
And excitingly so, it is my birth month. But let's get a look at that story.
I knew that's the more reason why you wished me. You just wanted to remind me.
I needed to. It's very important. But let's get a look at that story. We'll be back on the other side as we get to usher in Mr. Cosmas Chileshe, who is also a UPND member, recently joined the ruling UPND from the opposition Christian Democratic Party.
As a servant of the people, we hereby declare the prolonged drought spell as a national disaster and emergency.
The drought, which has affected about 84 districts in southern parts of Zambia for the most part of February, has been declared a national disaster and emergency. The declaration is in accordance with the Disaster Management Act number 13 of 2010. Speaking when he made the announcement Thursday during a national address, President Hakainde Hichilema said the declaration entails realigning the 2024 national budget to channel more resources to immediate and permanent drought response measures.
Short-term measures. We shall channel more resources as a government, as a people, as a community. We shall channel more resources towards humanitarian relief purposes to ensure that our affected citizens do not go hungry. Very important. We shall look at importing additional electricity, including rationing electricity in this area. We will aggressively, as I said, shift resources from consumption, wastage, travel, business class. Secretary Cabinet, I still hear that people who want to travel business class. From Lusaka to Johannesburg, business class, for 1 hour, 40 minutes. We sit on our stools, we villagers, for 3 hours. What's wrong with the economy ticket for 1 hour, 40 minutes? This is what I call pretense, pretentious behavior.
Mr. Hichilema says amongst the immediate interventions to the drought is planting of maize for irrigation by farmers at all levels, including defense wings.
We will leverage the use of Zambia's defense forces in peace times. Luckily, we're a country that has experienced peace for years. And during peace times, and this commander-in-chief, this servant of yours, will direct all the defense forces to be involved in this fight to save our lives, to save families, but also to create a platform for a longer-term solution to drought. Because climate change is here with us. It's here to stay.
The head of state has since called for unity of purpose by local and international stakeholders as he heaped praise on farmers for their response in the 2023-24 farming season.
And we want to be understood by our friends in the global community that this is a matter of survival now for us. It's not just food security, energy security, is now national security at stake. Earlier I touched on civil society, unions, traditional leaders, for that matter, political parties. Political parties. This is not a time for political competition. We will do that in 2026. For now, we have to work together.
President Hakainde Hichilema's declaration of the national disaster puts to rest calls by stakeholders in the farming and humanitarian sector to have the current dry spell declared a national disaster. For Camnet TV News, Afias Kaptula, Lusaka.
Thank you so much. That's a story that we get to look at this morning because many have made reference to that declaration that was made by Republican President Hakainde Hichilema that it is a national disaster and emergency. Looking at it, that over 1 million farmers have been affected by the dry spell that the country is currently experiencing, and we're being told that this dry spell may just even hit or continue with this month of March. By joining us this morning is Mr. Cosmas Chileshe, who is a UPND member, formerly Secretary General from the Christian Democratic Party. But even before we get into the thick and thin of it, let's get to have a good morning from Mr. Chileshe. Good morning, Mr. Chileshe.
Good morning. Thank you so much for being here once again, and good morning, our lovely viewers.
Thank you so much for joining us, and that you could come through and just have this discussion with us. First thing first, formally when we hosted you were Secretary General for Christian Democratic Party, but you made a decision that you are joining the ruling UPND, and on that forum, you are against this administration. What prompted you to go back to the UPND and then be part of them?
Well, it's been a great transformation, I must say. It's been a turning point in my political career, and something that I never saw that would come. But you see, when destiny calls, you just have to answer when the Lord calls you. But of course, everything happens for a purpose. Whatever has been happening in the opposition, the frustration, the loss of direction among opposition leaders as to the agenda they should pursue, it just brings you to a point where you understand where you're supposed to be. And I'm now a proud UPND member, and I want to take this opportunity to just thank His Excellency, the President of Zambia, President Hakainde Hichilema, and the Vice President and the entire leadership of the party for the big welcome that they have given to myself and my colleagues that I joined with Father Frank Bwalia and Brother Patrick. It's been a good experience, and we are so proud that to even learn more at the feet of the great leader that God has raised for this country, our president. So it's an awesome experience indeed. It's a rare privilege to be part of the new dawn. And,
would it not be ironic for someone out there, especially
yes,
an ordinary citizen, to say, okay, this is the person that has said bad things about the current administration, like this apple is not good, it's not good for your health, but it's the same person now that has turned and saying this apple is actually very good, you need to test it?
Actually, I'm now preaching the gospel that I once tried to destroy. So I'm proud that I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm a proud member of the UPND family. And there's always a veil that comes upon people where you cannot see where you are supposed to be. And believe you me, a lot of people painted the UPND to be black. They called them all sorts of names that it was difficult, even for me as a Christian. You introduced me being the former Deputy Secretary General for the Christian Democratic Party. The reason being I went and joined the Christian Democratic Party because of the Christian values and principles. I'm one of those that manifest the gifts of government as given by the Holy Spirit. And at any given point in time, you read the scriptures and you meet God, who clearly shows you that the authority that is existing is ordained of God, and that the person in office is God's minister. And as a child of God, how do I align myself and become relevant to the political environment? So I belong to a special clan of the sons of Issachar, if you understand what I mean by that, where I understand the times and the season that we are living in. The season is that of the new dawn, and I'm guided by the Spirit to know what I need to do at a particular time. And what I need to do at a particular time is to align myself with the good policies that have been implemented. under His Excellency President Hichilema. So it's a new dawn for us. It will take time for a lot of Zambians to adjust and live in this season of the new dawn, but that is what is before us up to the time the President takes us to the Vision 2030.
And pose this question. Yesterday we did see President Hakainde Hichilema declare the dry spell as a national disaster as well as emergency in line with DMMU Act number 13 of 2010, Disaster Management, rather Act number 13 of 2010.
Yes.
And this comes on the backdrop that there's been a lot of talks when it comes to the issue of food security, and we've seen that over 84 or about 84 districts have been affected out of the 160.
Yeah.
Is this a good call? Is it a good outlook, especially that the country's staple food is fetching at a higher price?
Well, food security now has become a national security. That is why the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces has given instructions to the Defense Forces, particularly the Zambia National Service. Already they have been doing a commendable job with the supply of cheaper meal. But there's a lot more that we can benefit from our men in uniform. This is what leadership takes at a time like this. Of course, there's a spiritual aspect that is connected to this. That is why the President has shown leadership in calling upon the church to pray, because we've not had enough rains. It's been a dry spell. The church have been praying. But in addition to that, the President has moved forward in declaring the dry spell as a national disaster and an emergency. This is good for this country, looking at the environment and the economic status that we are in. The administration took over office with a huge debt burden, which government has tried to restructure.
Is it assurance enough to the farmers out there, especially maybe those that might be affected if we go to Southern Province?
Well, they have been affected, but government has made interventions. For instance, the declaration of this situation as a national disaster and an emergency has brought in short-term and long-term measures to cushion the impact. And that is why my president is saying the administration is determined and resolved that despite us facing this triple tragedy, first of all, we had the COVID-19, and then it moved to the cholera pandemic, and then the drought situation. A triple tragedy we have been faced with. So the mid-term and long-term measures that government is putting in place will cushion, for instance, the call to plant winter maize, the call to come up with irrigation facilities, with the donor community responding from the UN agencies, the World Bank, the nation of Israel sending us the expertise. So it could be a blessing in disguise. Yes, we have prayed, and the action that the president has taken, it calls for leadership. That is the leadership that is needed. And in addition to that, the adjustments to be made to the 2024
Let me pose this
budget.
question.
So that
A lot of
yes,
opposition members have come on board and saying the current administration is using the climate change as an excuse for their incompetence. Is it this backdrop, given the fact that their argument rather has been that previously, the previous administration, which is the Patriotic Front, when it was time of COVID, they were condemned about that. Climate change as well, they were condemned about that when they said these situations are happening because of climate change. And now, we understand that the drought situation that we're going through is due to the climate change. And we have seen that this administration has put it on record that we are facing this due to the climate change. However, the opposition are arguing that you're using climate change as an excuse for your incompetence.
you see, the problem we have, it's a backdrop of where we are coming from, and we need to understand this story well. First of all, the president was highly demonized by all of us, okay, including myself. That's why I'm now preaching this gospel which I once tried, or which I destroyed, okay? We did not want him to be president. And that is the agenda which is still there. But even when the will of God has surpassed the will of man over the nation of Zambia, because it was in the destiny of God that President Hichilema will be president of this country. He is in office, and in 2.5 years, there's a success story that the New Dawn administration has scored. And some of us, from a media point of view, we've seen this success story, and that was one of the terms of reference I made to the Republican president when I was joining the UPND, is to help with the communication units of government as well as the party itself. Why? Because there's a success story. Despite the propaganda, despite the wrong agenda that has been set by the opposition. So even when he has done this success story, they still do not want this story to be told. And we cannot be like that if we are to develop as a nation. So there's time we can politic, and that is why the president was very right at the press briefing yesterday when he said that politics, let's reserve it for 2026. And in any case, in the UPND, we are not even worried about 2026 election, because it's a sweatless victory. We have a sellable candidate. I'm not looking at any threat from the opposition. Of course, we are in a democracy. Each one have their right to participate. But with all the economic policies that have been put in place, the restoration of the economic fundamentals for the country.
We are told that this drought situation is
yes.
also projected to go into this month, which is March. And we have
yes.
seen a lot of those in the agriculture sector calling for an agriculture endeavor.
Yes.
Do you think this is a way to go currently?
Of course, the president has opened up that the monopoly of wisdom is not just with the civil service or the public service workers. There's a lot of wisdom from the private sector. So agricultural endeavors are very much welcome, and this is the direction with which the period that has been declared the national disaster and emergency has to go through. So there will be all these stakeholder engagements to bring everyone on board so that we find a solution to forestall food security in this country. So the most important thing, I think, at this stage is that we need to put concerted efforts together and ensure that nobody goes to bed hungry. And that has been a great relief in terms of pronouncements coming from the president. Despite this COVID situation, the cholera pandemic, the drought situation, it will not move our focus as a new administration to deliver on the mandate. Primarily this year is a year for economic expansion and job creation and support for social sector. Despite the drought situation, despite the national disaster, we are still determined to ensure that we deliver on our mandate. Look at what is happening in the mining sector. The Minister of Finance just gave a ministerial statement to Parliament on the state of the economy. You can still see that Zambia, as an eagle, as we sing from our national anthem, will soar above these storms of the triple tragedy that we are facing. So we are still determined that despite these things that we are faced with, there are good policies the president has put in place. We will deliver on the election promises as contained in the party manifesto. So the future of Zambia's economy is bright. And that is the more reason the UPND administration came into office, to ensure that it delivers on this national development agenda
one
for
might
the country.
argue, though, that part of the long-term measure that has been put by the current administration is the fact that the country's 2024 national budget is going to be aligned to put in measures that are going to ensure that Zambians are saved out there. But on top of this is the fact that despite having this budget, we've also seen talks, we've also seen concerns coming in from the citizens that, look, the cost of living is high, the cost of doing business is high, and we've been left to a point now where we need to ration even the little resources that we have as a country.
I can tell you,
is it something
yes,
that is going to be attainable for it?
I can tell you, we are blessed as a nation.
Of the masses.
We are blessed as a nation that we have President Hakainde Hichilema in office. You need to look at where we are coming from for you to appreciate where we are now. There was no investor confidence in the previous administration. You saw that our mining sector, on which we heavily depend on copper export earnings, okay, that mining sector was almost collapsing. The investors were leaving this country. The mines were repossessed. So what has happened now, there's investor confidence which has come. There are huge dollars which have been pumped into the mining sector, which has had an impact on the exchange rate. The kwacha was soaring around 27. Now it has come to 23, and you've seen the impact it has had on the price of fuel. Yesterday,
one might argue that these things are not being seen. Despite a 3/4 reduction in the fuel pump price, it doesn't mean that the cost of living is also going to reduce, because the instability in the kwacha against the dollar has also been seen. Because the other day, you are going to find that the dollar is at 24, the other day it is at 23. It keeps on fluctuating.
Well, there will be stability. There will be stability. And in fact, it's been projected that it will further go down, even to 15. And will experience further price reductions on commodities, because when fuel comes down, everything has to respond. So there will be a trickle effect. But there's a period also that we need to understand on which the financial year that runs. We are in 2024, and we are running the financial year for this year, which just started last month. Now it's 1st March, but almost we can say last month. You see, so do you expect any of the policies which have been implemented all of a sudden within 1 month to happen? So when we look at development agenda, we need to look at them from this kind of lens. By the time it gets to December this year, that is why the president made it very clear that we have put economic fundamentals in place, and by the time this year ends, indeed will deliver on this year being a year for economic expansion, job creation, and also support that will be given to social sectors.
I would like to take you back.
Definitely.
I'd like to take you
as
back
the year proceeds,
on
you will see economic gains that
for
will
fuel
be made.
having
Yes,
a trickle effect when it comes to the cost of living, the cost of doing businesses for the citizens out there.
That's right.
I can tell you for a fact that there was a review for January in December, right?
Yes.
There was also a review for February in January, right?
Yes.
And we saw that there was also instability in terms of how this fuel pump price review was being done. But how is it possible that these effects are going to actually come to the atonement of the citizens? Because we look at the period, before you know it, the fuel pump price changes.
I would not expect it to change. If there will be any change, it must be a downward adjustment. Those are the changes we are expecting, because we anticipate this kwacha appreciation to get stronger further, which will further again reduce the price of fuel, maybe coming to below 30, prices of meal as well, especially with the reinforcement of the defense forces in establishing these agricultural blocks and promotion of irrigation, water harvesting, and the kind winter maize. Definitely. And this is the direction, the declaration is a blessing in disguise. Definitely to call for more resource allocation. It will bring about innovation of new methods of farming, looking for alternative sources of energy, because we expect the energy sector as well, which is largely dependent on hydro to be affected.
Let me bring you back to
yes.
this. Don't you think declaring the drought situation now as a national disaster were a bit too late, given the fact that 2 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, or 3 weeks ago, we heard the agriculture minister saying they have now suspended the export of maize. Don't you think we should have done that earlier, given that we knew about how this situation was going to greatly affect the country?
Well, there are processes under which a declaration like that has to go through, there's needs assessment that is undertaken. So only until when the reports are ready. Well, yes, we would have loved it to come much earlier, but it could not have come at a better time than this one, that the president has made the declaration, because there are certain processes during the process of determining the needs assessment, which has been done by the DMMU, and the time is ripe. The president has put all the measures in place to ensure that we can open up for more aid from the donor community, and then restructure or make adjustments to the budget so that there's more resource allocation, and we leverage, of course, with the defense forces that have been tasked to ensure that they maintain the food security, which ultimately is our national security. So the time is just right. Yeah.
Do you think this is now the time that farmers should be looking on other ways of methods of farming, especially venturing into irrigation?
Of course, the other thing that we have to look at, there were prayers that were done at the Cathedral of the Holy Cross. One of the prayer requests there, the wisdom was that in areas where there is enough rainfall, okay, let those areas produce bumper harvests. Let's have more training, because most of these regions, as they were described, they are not so much agricultural oriented in terms of having that culture. So let's have more kind of training so that we now understand that these are the areas we should concentrate in terms of having a bumper harvest. When they have a bumper harvest, then they are able to feed the other areas which have been faced with drought. And since this is likely to remain with us, so it's a good start that we have to move with this space in anticipation of this climate change that have affected the weather pattern. But we pray and remain hopeful that God can change the situation, because He's told us that when there's famine in the land, if my people who are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, I will hear from heaven and heal their land. So He's been answering our prayers when we have prayed for rain to come down. So while it is predicted from a scientific point of view that climate change is there to stay with us, we take that wisdom and we also ask God to intervene so that we can have normal rainfall over the land. But otherwise, despite what we are faced with, the administration is determined to deliver on its mandate. This year will still be the year of economic expansion, job creation, and will provide more support to social sectors of the economy.
Let's also get to look at irrigation.
Yes, sir.
I know for a fact that even when this current administration was ushered into office, one of its plans was to ensure that farming blocks are restructured, well equipped with irrigation equipment, right? But this farm, one might argue to say certain things have not actually been put or been actualized, and also the argument is the fact that, look, an El Nino was already anticipated in the year 2023, and as a country we needed to prepare enough rather than being reactive.
Sure. But I think the most important thing is that we are at this stage. We have faced this enemy head on. This enemy that has come in a triple tragedy. We don't know the other tragedies which are of natural phenomenon that may come up. But the issue that I'm happy with is that the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, because as an ordinary citizen, I've seen that there's a lot we can benefit from ZNS through agriculture. There's a lot of engineering that can be utilized from the Zambia Army to do our roads and other developmental projects for the country. So the time is right, and everything is just pointing to what we need to do at this particular time, so that ultimately at the end of it we are able to deliver on our national mandate. So this is the way to go.
I'm prompted to ask this question.
Yes.
Is Zambia going to be ever prepared in terms of responding to disaster? For instance, I'll take you back. During COVID-19, we were
Yes.
forced to take in stringent measures. The same happened during cholera outbreak, where we saw the National Hero Stadium being turned into a cholera treatment center.
Yes.
And now that there's this drought that has been hit by a country, which was already anticipated in 2023, if you ask me,
Yes.
we
Well,
are now
the
beginning.
anticipation was there.
We're now beginning to take off the comfort zone and begin to react. Are we ever going to prepare in terms of mitigation measures?
This is part of preparation to mitigate the situation. There are short-term and long-term measures that have already been outlined. Instructions have been given, and we'll see a new outlook of the agricultural sector that will come up with arising from the short and long-term measures with the help of cooperating partners, with the help coming from the Israelis and other World Bank and the UN agencies and everyone else being involved, with our own people being involved in adopting these new methods of farming. So for me, this is a good platform so that going forward we'll be able to handle any tragedy that may come. So this is a preparation for sure.
My other question, you
Yes.
talked about the preparation, you talked about the help that will come from these other countries. Are we so much dependent on donor help at the moment that
That's what the
prepare
declaration. That's what the declaration entails. When you have a national disaster, it's an emergency situation. So the president is calling on the multilateral nations, our creditors in this case, with given the drought situation, can we have closure? That's what he was saying to the public debt. So the declaration provides that platform for us to receive this kind of help that we need to develop, and this will help the administration to deliver on its mandate. So we are good to go in facing these challenges. That's right.
Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
You are through to the Camnet TV Breakfast Show. Who are we talking to this morning?
Yeah. Hello?
We can clearly get you. Please go ahead with your contribution.
We seem to have lost that
Okay,
call.
we
Sure.
seem to have lost that caller, but please do call us back and get in touch with us as we get to continue with our discussion this morning, where we are looking at the address made by the president yesterday and what are some of your takeaway things that you need to understand, or rather you would suggest that government should put in place some of the measures apart from the long-term and short-term measures that have already been put in place in ensuring that we deal with this drought situation. Anyway, I understand that our current discussion this morning is
Yes.
on the drought situation.
Yes.
But let me shift your attention a little bit. This
Exactly.
week we have seen that a lot of people, especially coming from the opposition patriotic front there, we have seen a lot of people calling on the lifting of the immunity of the former head of state. And we saw him making a statement on the 27th of February 2024, where he said, it does not make him less Zambian if he's former head of state. And he talked about, we might go for early elections than 2026. Citizens might rise against the current head of state at the moment, looking at the hardship that are going through in the country.
Miriam, you've brought out a very important issue, and my heart bleeds, and it's one of the reasons that really made me leave the opposition when I saw the direction that opposition leaders they were taking. First of all, I would like to appeal to President Edgar Lungu, our former Republican president. He occupies a very, very important office in this land, that of a former head of state. And mind you, even our statutes provides for the benefits that are accorded to the office of the former president. They even assign an administrative assistant at the level of Deputy Permanent Secretary to man the office of the former president. And to me it appears, and I said this when I was in the Patriotic Front, Miriam, mind you, I'm one of the founding members of the Patriotic Front. You see, the same people that misled President Lungu, the same people that could not advise him, for instance, to choose a successor in 2021, are the same people that are still misleading the former head of state. When I listened and watched him on that day you are making reference to, I was asking myself, where are the former president's handlers? Where are they? They are supposed, the people that are supposed to...
Just hold your thought, Mr. Chileshi.
Yes.
Let's get this going. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
You are through to the Camnet TV breakfast show. Who are we talking to?
Camnet TV. I want to make contribution on the topic it is running right now.
Please go ahead.
Yes, really Commissioner speaking. From Christopher.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes. My question is, we think it's right there. What is the government doing? What is the government doing or going to do about the price of it is continuing on the Coca Bill?
Thank you so much for your contribution.
Yes.
Anyway, you can finish with
Yes,
your
I'll respond to that. The former president does not have people that should manage him, because if he had, they would not have been allowing him to conduct himself in the manner that we are seeing, because we are seeing him leaving that position of honor that is due to him. He is the only surviving former head of state for this country. And even the decision for him to come back from retirement was one of the worst blunders that was ever made. He's coming to do what? For heaven's sake. Coming to do what?
Well, his argument has been he has seen the suffering that Zambians
No, he's not the only one. He's not the only one. It's not, it should not be upon Lungu to feel that he should be the only one. God gave him that chance to rule this country for 7 years. And you see, Miriam, you need to understand the purpose with which leadership comes in office. Lungu was raised as a transitional leader for this country. If you understand the reason with which you are raised, God said about Pharaoh, for this purpose have I raised him. What was the purpose of Lungu becoming president of this country? Was to provide leadership in the transition period after the death of President Michael Sata. That is why we in the PF, we wanted him to choose a successor after he had finished his 2 term, or after he had twice held office. He should have chosen a successor. So we cannot have a situation where even down...
Let's get to this call. Let's get
no, I'm not talking about the eligibility.
We get to go with the conversation.
That's
Hello,
right.
you're through to the Camnet breakfast show. Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah, so we've lost that caller, but it's unfortunate that the former head of state had
but
to make those statements.
You cannot mention that he wrote, maybe he
No.
allegedly got into office twice, because the court in 2021 ruled otherwise. They said that term, that period cannot be constituted as a term.
Well, it's subject to debate. That is why there are some people that have resuscitated the case to take it to court, so that the court can look at that case.
You're through to the Camnet TV breakfast show.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Morning, thank you. Your name and where are you calling us from?
I'm William, still calling you from Mondola.
Sure, Mr. William, you can go through with your contribution from Ndona.
Yeah, please. You see, where we are now, it's not time to vote. This person has done this person has done this. Where we are now is a time for unity. We unite in prayers, we plant ideas, so that we move together.
This is the time where we are. Zambia as a Christian nation, we need to unite in prayer. We need to unite in ideas for the betterment of our nation. The president has done it. Let us support what he has done. Let us support the folks that are there. You know, he has done a lot. Where we are now is not time to blame this person, no. This is a time for unity, family level, political level, so that we can move together. Because time is running out. In the region here, where we are, we have heard a lot of factors affecting the weather, affecting climate and what they do. All these things, they need prayer. Where we are right now is not time to blame the president, it's not time to blame the government. It's time to unite and to pray together so that God can intervene. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr.
I totally agree with that sentiment. You see, and we expect that leadership to come from the former head of state in calling for unity. He's held that office before, and to hear statements of what he said, I couldn't believe. I couldn't believe what has caused the situation for the nation to move in the direction that he said. That is not statesmanship. So the request for unity should come from our number one father of this nation. And who is that person? That is the position that the former head of state is supposed to occupy. So he should not leave that office to come back to active politics. He's been in the system before, because he's putting himself in the firing range. He no longer has immunity. The immunity he enjoyed was only tied to the executive functions that he performed. That is why any statement that he says now is subject for investigation. Like we've rightly heard from the police that they're investigating that statement, because former president does not have that immunity anymore. But is that the situation we would like him to be faced with? It's the only person we should be looking to. So my age to EC Hale is to get back to retirement. That is the position of honor that this nation, okay, has for him. Whoever advised him to return to active politics was a serious misleading advice that was given to him. So would like to respect him as a former head of state, and if he's listening to this broadcast, definitely he understands that yes, that is where he belongs. He's not supposed to come in this firing range. He relinquished after going through that massive defeat by 1 million votes. He was defeated lamentably. Where would he even get the energy from to say he wants to participate? Let him provide that advisory role and unite this nation. That's what a statesman is supposed to be. President Hichilema should be free to call on him, to send him to other countries to represent him. But how is he going to do that to an opposition leader?
Just a moment. Let's get to pick this call. Good morning. You're through to the Camnet TV Breakfast Show.
Good morning. I just called speaking in December.
I'm quite good morning. Is not banana. Let me know, Kwisa.
Let me know. Kitwe mo gospel wadia.
Okay, Babu Wadia. Good morning. Pera contribution.
Kitwe gospel wadia.
Ture good morning.
Contribution yangu depo kulanda. Ikilengesha umuntu okinganda umuntu nangu aji piloto kumungu ya cyabonere mu haida leadership ngayakiriko nasi kwa leadership twari cyo kugera kuri station abo bonse bakateka binde kapati zingara ndefyo aba bari kokolishashi cyaro cyo cyose ngakishwa bakatagisi sector cyo pari con ngara ndefyo nyamuri n'umugari yakuba kamunga bakateka wesu muri ngora amubona kinabonye simishenye sinashika ekirengejo wera mwana yakumukashi wakota agende umukashi wanikanye ari kushesha street watu yegwenda ayikire kwa mawindo umbayari kabe no promise kare mune ekirengere balumba kibabuuze lwaki bali bagira abali mu national activity ekirengere balumba buuze so tusitwala ekiragiro nti yapaiti ngaapushi
batata ba Godfrey na totela sana kaicho ndefo okulandapo chakwe bati chibe mbachitila ti imbwekela numa iladia. Okay, we cannot go back to that. Kaibatila ti ngawashana amasha ikala bantu nga batota ngawafayo okuwekeshapo wala tena so okukufayo okuwekeshapo kuntu balefo ati banga wekeshapo mkwaiku tena pano tuli nga nation ya Zambia. We are like the children of Israel when God delivered them from bondage. At some point when they were going to the promised land, there were some hardship they faced. And they said it would have been better for us to die in Egypt than for us to die in the wilderness. And when Moses spoke to God, God told him, Moses, tell the children of Israel to do what? To go forward. So we are not going kuli alewele lapo. The vision for the now in the New Dawn administration is to go forward. And the Red Sea, which is before the nation of Zambia, we are already crossing it. And President Hakainde Hichilema is determined, despite what we are going through, out of natural calamities, we are going to deliver on the economic mandate to take Zambia as a prosperous middle-income country by 2030.
Let's wrap up this conversation this morning with the state of the country's economy. We did see an update from the Minister of Finance. That was last week.
That's right.
Yes, before Parliament.
Yes.
In terms of ensuring that also we're updated in terms of what is happening.
Yes.
Of the country's economic indicators and everything. And as of yesterday,
yes,
we also did get information from the Zambia Statistic Agency that are saying February inflation has increased to 13.5% from 13.2% recorded in January 2024. This is the 8th time that we're having an increase in the country's inflation. Does it mean that the country's state of the economy will get to improve even with the drought that the country has been hit with?
Exactly. That is the resolve of this administration. But talking about this, I would love to add more meat in my wrap-up message. But I wanted to just conclude that thought in urging the former head of state to get back to retirement where he's respected. This thing of him, it's going to just wear him out. And we encourage those who are surrounding him because they're not telling him the truth. The issue is that he's surrounded with people that are competing for the same thing that he wants to. All those people he went to see, they are presidential candidates in his own party, so they may not even give him proper advice. The advice is for him to get back to retirement where he's respected. So the economy under the New Dawn administration, as given by Finance Minister in the State of Economy address, the economy and the future is bright. We are determined. We are determined, despite the triple tragedy that we are going through as a nation. By the end of this fiscal year, we will still deliver on the economic mandate that has been laid out in this year of expansion, job creation, and support to social sectors of the economy. So the future is bright, and I'm glad and I'm so proud that under the tenure of President Hakainde Hichilema, by the time he winds up on his two-term mandate that goes up to 2031, I'll be one of the proud graduates of President Hakainde Hichilema Economic Academy. So we are.
Is that a prediction?
Not a prediction. That's what is before us. That's a new dawn. That's a new dawn for the nation of Zambia. We have this good leader to be in office up to the time he delivers on the national mandate. That's 2031. And whoever takes over will have it easy. They'll have sweatless victories of running this country because all the economic fundamentals will have been restored for this country. And that was the purpose with which the UPND was raised. It was raised for such a time as this.
I would like to also you to tackle one of the comment that is coming from our viewers on Facebook in Banda Rayford. I believe he's been following proceedings where you dished the Christian Democratic Party to the UPND.
Yes.
Now, his submissions is, I stopped trusting these guys, meaning politicians.
Yes.
They're just after their bellies. That is, according to him, politicians are just after their bellies. Is it indeed
that's
the
not
case?
it.
Is it indeed the case?
That's not it. I'll tell you my personal experience that God has fed my life all this long. I don't survive because of politics. And I've gone to UPND really to contribute. If there's a job I'll be given, well and good, because I would deserve it. But primarily, it is patriotism, it is national interest, and also giving credit where it is due. And where the credit is that we have a great prophet for this land. They say a prophet is without honor in his own country. We refuse to be such a nation who give credit to our own prophet, and that is President Hakainde Hichilema. So it's not about our belly. We live on the little. So what else are we looking for? We just want to ensure that we don't have a wrong agenda coming from the propagandist people who are just full of envy and full of hate against this man that God has raised for this nation. So I don't subscribe to that. Yes, they may say that, but by and large, we should all have the heart for this nation.
Zambia as we get to
prosper.
Give your concluding remarks.
Yes.
One of the questions that has been going around and has been a concern for many citizens is that most of the times politicians intend to have amnesia. Many of times they promise to do something and yet they don't do that thing. Once they form government, they intend to forget what they have promised the Zambian people.
It's
As
true.
you get to wrap up your conclusion,
it's true. That is experience that we have seen, but have received the highest level of assurance that not even a single promise that President Hakainde Hichilema made as an opposition leader will fall to the ground as his Republican president without finding any fulfillment. We have a person who is sincere. It is not the typical of these politicians we know that would lie through to get into office. I think when you see the president articulating these things, you can see that the man is sincere about what he's saying. The man means well. So yes, that is what we've been used to, but this is a new dawn. And that's why I keep saying that it will take time for many people to allow this to sink, the new dawn to sink. So, but day by day, this veil is being taken away. Many people are beginning to see the light that this nation is carrying. So, and that is my mandate. That is the mandate. I will not belong to anything that have not been spoken to by God. God spoke to me to go to the UPND after he frustrated me in the opposition. Because that's what God does. He will frustrate you in the position where you are so that he shows you where you're supposed to be. And I'm where I am valued. I'm where I've been appreciated. I did not expect to receive this amazing welcome in the UPND. It is such a lovely family, and I encourage all those people that were bitter, all those people who are still agitating. We're extending an olive branch, and that is why all the people that have followed our leadership in the opposition will be going to the Copper Belt. Kuliwa Godfrey Bwadia. I come from Chumwemwe. I'm a copper person. So we want to influence the politics in Kitwe district. That is my assignment. I want to get back to where I came from. I want to influence politics on the Copper Belt, politics in Luapula, Mansa, my regions, because my people are still blind. I need to get to the ground and open their eyes so that we can see what the Lord has done for this country, and we are blessed to have the new dawn in administration. So the future is bright, and everyone is free to come on board. The president launched the 6-point strategy when he welcomed us at the Anderson Kambela Mazoka Secretariat. We'll be having the UPND Community Day, where we'll be glad in party regalia. So we want to use this as an outreach to bring more membership to the party, and we are determined to raise a 1 million vote in addition to.
Let's get to pick this score and
the 2.8 that voted for the
president. Good morning. You're through to the Camnet TV Breakfast Show. Good morning. Okay, it seems we've lost that caller. Oh, good morning.
Good morning.
Your name and where you're calling us from?
Yeah, this is the African thing.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I want to go to the video actually. Hello?
Yes, we're able to get you. You can go ahead with your contribution.
Hello?
We're able to get you. Go ahead with your contribution.
Yeah, my contribution is in that way. New Dawn government is coming to power to translate the people. Why I'm talking about that? The problem is they start relying people without giving care. When they come into power, when they say dollar, part of the application against dollar. From 10 hours to 10 hours, part of the application against dollar. 2 plus, yes. Salomba, 14 hours, Taylor, 6 hours. Second, brand new Dawn government. No matter serious work, but I'm talking about this alone. Meaning, after that, you know, the little very quick stuff, some little late stuff. We don't collect the politics that this time you move to next 360 and other countries have to start. But I'm talking about look at the parents keep talking. But today you are teaching people that need them to live on this job. Get training, pull up yourself. 3/4 Germany, don't get the attention, who is new from government. That person is an accountant. He knows.
Thank you so much for your contribution.
Yes.
Thank you so much. We'll have to cut you short due to time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I get that view. It represents many views.
In 30 seconds.
And honestly, the most important thing is that we need to appreciate the situation. Okay, the situation is that there are promises that the president made prior to his election. He's been in office in 2.5 years. Okay, the appreciation of the situation. This is what the communication function of government as well as the party will endeavor to do so that people can understand why things are like this. Okay, it's a negative state which is there as public relations specialists and communication specialists. We are now determined to combine team with communication units because there's a success story which has not been told amidst these complaints. So we want to open people's eye once they understand where we are coming from, what has been done, and where we are going. They will now see the light. So I totally understand what she's saying, and that is where we want to supplement with the communication unit so that information of what there is a lot of empowerment, I tell you, that is going on under the gender division, under the Ministry of Community, under the Ministry of Youth and Sport, but all these things under CDF. Okay, so we want to provide a communication function so that people can appreciate their government. That negative state should be converted into a positive one. People will be able to be sympathetic to the situation and will together move at the same place as we are determined under the new dawn to deliver on the economic expansion and economic recovery for this country. So the future is bright. Otherwise, we'll do our part to relay the success story to everyone across the country.
All right, thank you so much for you, our viewers, such as Primos Halimbewe on Facebook, Banda Rayford, as well as Fanuel Kabila, Rachel Kaki, as well as Patrick Samumbila was also watching us, Grace Mwanangu, as well as Open Secrets. We say thank you to all those comments that you've brought us through into the new month, and we wish you a new month as well, wherever you've been watching us from. Our guest this morning was Mr. Cosmas Chilesha, who's UPND member, just to help us understand his understanding in terms of the declaration of the dry spell as a national disaster, as well as a state of emergency for the country, as well as other economic as well as political issues that we delve into, just to have a good perspective with him. He's been having breakfast with us, and thank you so much. It has been Nelson Zulu and Miriam Kaimban. We call it a day, and happy new month to everyone.
Thank you.